Today, we are diving in to my own journey and the money mindset shift that really changed my life. It took me from a very impoverished background to now having made multi-millions and just getting started. So, if you're new here, I'm Makosi, also known as the Royal Shaman. I support incredible conscious change makers in really stepping into their calling and creating amazing empires that support them in fulfilling that work in this world. So I do that by talking about personal development, spirituality, and entrepreneurship. However, today we're going to talk specifically about money and my own journey. I'm not an overnight success by any stretch of the means, and I think that there's going to be some things that you can take away from my story. I decided to do this topic because people have been asking me to share more about my own story, my own journey, because of course, if you are following me now, you haven't seen all of the trials and tribulations, all of the failures that I've experienced, as well as what it really took mentally from a level of embodiment, what it's really taken for me to be able to create a life that is absolutely beyond my wildest dreams. To give you some context, I'm married, I'm a mother, my son is 10 years old. I've been with my husband a long time. So we've been together on this journey. And mind you, he also does not come from wealth. I think it's important sometimes to talk about the partner and like what role that played if you had one, because sometimes as women, everyone thinks like, oh, it must be your sugar daddy. There's been moments in my life because people misunderstood who I am, what I'm doing. And again, this is actually not even any shade on women who that's how they roll. That's actually aligned for some feminine beings. The men do benefit from that in multiple ways, not just, you know what I'm saying? However, that hasn't been my path. So just a little context there. My husband was one of 10 children. His mother had him very, very young. They were constantly being evicted and having to move all of the time. And then he lost his mother at age 13 due to breast cancer. So he had a very difficult upbringing. I also had a difficult upbringing. And the two of us have definitely evolved in so many ways. I grew up in small town, West Virginia. My mom was a teenage mom. She had both of us, my brother and I, before she was 18 years old. So she had me at 16, had him at 17. And my father also had other children after the two of us, but they were never really together. So my mother was a single teen mom, and life for us was very hard. There were periods of living in a trailer park. I do remember specifically that things did seem to get better when we were living also with my grandmother. But there were times that even the idea of what are we going to eat tonight was like, that's what we were in survival mode. There were periods of time where we wouldn't have heat to heat our homes. And life was a constant paycheck by paycheck. My mother working multiple jobs, so she wasn't able to really be very present with us. And it was the struggle life in so many ways. Now, as a child, as you can imagine, having that experience, I always had dreams of having a different life. I thought the way that you do that is you go to college, you get a degree, you get a 9 to 5, and that's how you get out of that situation. I grew up in an area that is one of the most impoverished states in the United States. So it wasn't like I had a lot of role models. I don't remember having any role models really that were engaged in my life as a child. Pretty much everyone that we were surrounded was struggling financially. So I didn't have these experiences where, oh my gosh, I'm being mentored by someone who is taking me to, I don't know, travel. I didn't even get on a plane until my 20s, until like my mid 20s to be specific. So it wasn't even an idea for me that I could get to the level that I operate in now, but I'm a little rebellious and I was determined to beat the statistics. Now, as a kid, having the experiences that I had gave me doors. I will say they were opportunities where there weren't actually any doors there. I just created the doors. And that has served me well. So, number one takeaway that you can take from this is find ways to take your obstacles and then make them opportunity. There were multiple times in my childhood, because we could not afford things, that I had to make a way. I mean, I guess I didn't have to. I just chose to make a way where there was no way. And I am very good at that now. My first experience in entrepreneurship specifically, I was 9 years old. I have Amish Mennonite family, and we actually went and lived with them for a few years. But at 9, we had gone back and visited for a summer. And my aunt was like, all right, we are going to go to the Amish market and we're going to sell rhubarb pies. Specifically, they were rhubarb. That was my first time selling, and I was really good out there, like hustling pies. You could just imagine me as a 9-year-old. I was very charismatic, and I was out there selling pies. So that was my first experience with like, wait a minute, I can offer something to people and then they can give us money in exchange for that. So a couple years later, this is when cell phones start coming out. And there were some people at my middle school that had cell phones. There were a couple kids who had cell phones. And I told my mom, I want a cell phone. And of course, she was like, there's no way you're getting a cell phone. We cannot afford for you to have a cell phone. So if you want a cell phone, you're going to have to figure out a way to pay for it. So after she broke it down to me what that would cost and what that would look like, I was like, all right, I'm going to get the money to pay for a cell phone. So I launched a mini tutoring business. I went out and I found some clients. I started tutoring kids that were younger than me. At this time, I was in 7th grade. They were in like 5th and 4th grade. And so I started tutoring them in English and math. And that was like a consistent, I would make like $20, $30, $40, $50 every week. And then I was able to pay for my phone every single month. So I've been in a variety of business opportunities since that age. Also around that age, I had a friend, maybe I was 13. I had a friend who gifted me a tarot deck. And I was a very good intuitive reader right off the bat. So I took my tarot deck and I started doing tarot readings for kids at school. They would pay me for tarot insights. I also got into pageants, and I had to raise money because if you've ever been in pageants, they're very expensive. My mom could not afford for me to be in pageants, but I was like, I'm going to do this. And so I would find ways to make money. So that should give you a little bit of context to the kind of preteen and then teenager I turned into. I eventually, around 14, 15, became a professional entertainer. So I started traveling with a DJ company. Every weekend, I was out dancing, singing, doing bar and bat mitzvahs, wedding receptions. I will never forget this. This was probably a really big moment for me. At 15, we did, I think it was a Halloween party. It had to be a Halloween party because I remember specifically, I met the owner of Sheetz. So if you're not in the US or you're not in an area where there are Sheetz, Sheetz are a gas station. The owner of that company was there. So this is like a multi-millionaire, if not a billionaire at that point, probably was a billionaire by then. And he was wearing a SpongeBob SquarePants costume. And I'll never forget that because I danced with him. We talked, we laughed, we goofed. He was, an older man, and he was just so lighthearted. So this was like my first experience with meeting someone who had like real money. They were not at all what the typical like, oh, this is how people with money act, and this is how you've got to look. Number one, you would never know how much money he had by looking at him. He was very relatable and you could just talk with him. I'm sure that that had some effect on me and shifted my perspective about what people with money were like. So fast forward a few more years and I'm in college. In college, again, going back to my early childhood, I had it in my mind, you go to college and that's where your success is made. I changed my major a few times because I really love to learn. However, I would get bored really, really easily. And also at this time, I had a gazillion jobs. Let me tell you, I'm a horrible employee. I'm not great at doing the same thing every single day and kind of like robotic stuff. Not great. But I was in sales and in management, like in retail management, all sorts of stuff. I decide, well, I'm in college. I want to make the like what's the hardest thing that you could do, or what's going to get you like the most clout, the most respect. There's only a few things, right? You can become a lawyer, you could become an engineer, or you could become a doctor. I am very good at science and also pretty good at math. So I was like, all right, ding, 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 I'm going to become a doctor. I'm going to become a doctor. Literally, I just fantasized about having the word doctor in front of my name, which sounds like I wanted to become a doctor, not because I genuinely wanted to become a doctor, but because I thought that it would, my mom would be proud of me, that people would stop underestimating me, that they would respect me, and also that I would have enough money to be able to take care of myself, my family, and my kids would never have the childhood that I grew up in. So while this should tell you how ridiculous this was. While I'm in college studying to become a doctor, I'm literally taking my medical school prereq classes. At the same time, I'm working full time in a variety of different roles over my college career. So I was in sales selling jewelry and mattresses at one point, like high-end Tempur-Pedic, Stearns and Foster's mattresses. I was in retail management at some point. And because of that, I'm like, oh, well, sales, business, management has always been easy to me. Oh, I had also created marketing opportunities for myself because I couldn't get an internship. So I was like, I'm gonna get a degree in business just in case this whole med school thing doesn't work out. I'm gonna fall back on business because like, this is easy. I can do this all day. Which should have been my sign that, hey, if it's easy, maybe you naturally have a gift here. Maybe you should do this. In order to get that degree, of course, I also needed an internship. There was no internships where I was. They certainly weren't paid. I went to small businesses that were in my local area and I was like, hey, you don't have a social media presence. This was like 2011, 2010. You're not on social media. How about you let me create a social media presence for you and do your marketing? In exchange, you will let me do a case study of you and you'll write a testimonial of what your experience was, whether it's good or bad, that I can put in my portfolio. I still have that portfolio, by the way. I kept track of like my conversions when I was in sales, my, anything anyone gave me that was like some piece of social proof I put in that portfolio. So anyway, I'm doing my prereqs for med school. I am also studying to get my degree in marketing management my senior year. I was a super senior because I was working my entire time. So it took me 6 years to graduate from college. Literally 6 years. But my final year, I had some health complications that had come up. Actually, my first senior year, health complications came up. The doctor told me and my then fiance if we wanted to have children, we were probably going to need to start trying because I was going to have a very limited window of fertility. He was right in that it took over a year of different treatments and a lot of struggle to get pregnant. I then struggled to stay pregnant. I decided not to drop out, but I was taking like chemistry and physics and biology in that last year, and I couldn't physically go to school, and they didn't have online options. I refused to drop out in my last year. I was like, no, I'm going to teach myself. I taught myself physics and biology and chemistry, which was a doozy because chemistry I did not. I did not take to it very easily at all. I'm completing my education, I'm getting my degree, and I had one semester left after my son was born. And then when he came, after so many struggles to get pregnant, the struggle to stay pregnant, and then I had an experience right after he was born where I developed postpartum preeclampsia and ended up in the hospital. I came very close to death. And here I was facing med school, and I just could not picture myself leaving him to go study all the time. I was like, he's going to be like 10 years old before I have any real time with him. I couldn't do it. So I decided to finish my classes. I was like, if I ever need to go to med school, if I ever want to go back, I will have my prereqs. So that's cool. Got a job at Red Lobster in my last semester because we needed the money. I ended up with 2 degrees because I was able to use some of my credits from the other school that I was in. I got basically 2 degrees, one in business and one in marketing management at the same time. So 2 bachelor's degrees in business and marketing and management. And then I had taken all of my prereqs for med school. That's just a little bit of context to what was really possible. Because here I come, I'm out of school. I had worked my entire college career. And mind you, not just my whole college career, I had been working in some capacity since I was like 12. And now I'm like 23, 24. I'm applying to all sorts of jobs, but there's no opportunities really. This is like off the back of the 2008 recession. I live in West Virginia. There's no opportunities really there. Everyone was telling me like, hey, you're overqualified for a lot of these jobs, or underqualified for the jobs that I was applying for that were like out of state. I ended up working at Target. I go from Red Lobster, have my degrees, go work at Target as a manager. And I thought that that was going to be okay because I had a decent schedule for a mom, but the daily having to drop him off at daycare and then pick him up, and then, after all the traffic and making dinner, it was like I was only getting to spend an hour a day with him, which again was just not at all what I wanted. If you got value from this, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I will be seeing you next week, and be sure to hit me up in the DMs with any insights or ahas that you had from me sharing my story. I'll see you next week. Bye.